Which players should you be stashing on your Dynasty teams? We're talking about that in today's video. As always, like and subscribe. We put out content all year long. Join our Discord. Link is in the description. We'll answer whatever questions you have if you do join our Discord. And today, we're going over some Dynasty stashes. I wanted to compile these. I've been making some kind of deep Dynasty stashes on individual players. Now, this one's kind of a compilation of all the AFC teams, so 16 teams, and one player from each team that I think you should potentially stash if you have the roster space, especially before training camp start. It's currently July 5th when I'm recording this. I'm probably going to release this sometime early next week, so like July 8th, 9th, 10th, in that range. From that point on, we're just like a week, 2 weeks away from most training camp starting. And we're going to get news. We're going to get risers and fallers and things like that. So get ahead of the game. Maybe add some of these players before training camp start. And, some of them may rise. And again, these are deep Dynasty stashes. I tried to fit a criteria here. I had tried to fit where there was no quarterbacks ranked in the top 36, no running backs ranked in the top 75, no wide receivers in the top 100, and no tight ends in the top 30. So these are all like very, again, probably sitting out there on your waiver wire, kind of deep stashes. I did have to cheat with a couple teams like I did with the first team here, starting in the AFC West with the Raiders. Dylan Lobb or Lobby, I always forget how to pronounce his last name, Lobb or Lobby. He's one of the ones I cheated on, right? There was really no one else good to choose for the Raiders. They're either all ranked in the top, in the top half of my criteria, or just not good enough. He's close enough, Dylan Lobb, RB66. And if you're not familiar with him, he was a 6th-round pick. Maybe he went in your Dynasty rookie drafts, not sure, but he was a 6th-round pick, rookie running back for the Raiders. He went to New Hampshire, so he went to a small school, but the dude was just their entire offense. He was their entire offense. Like, you just look at his stats last year: 160 rushes, 750 yards, 9 touchdowns to go along with 68 catches for 700 yards. So we're talking about 1,450 total yards with 16 total touchdowns, almost 70 catches. He had 15 kick returns, 16 punt returns. So, like, the dude does it all. And I think that's what he's going to do for the Raiders. If you play in any type of, I know some leagues are moving towards this, any type of return yards, like rewards for return yards, you should be picking him up. But even if you don't, like, the Raiders, what we have right now is a situation where they have Zamir White and they have Alexander Madison and like not much else after that, right? Maybe Amir Abdullah or Brandon Bolden are still there, not sure. But, there's room for potentially, if one of those guys just aren't very good, like Alexander Madison, potentially for Dylan Lobb or Lobby to make his way up the depth chart and become the RB2. So I would potentially stash him. Again, he might be drafted, but he might be out there on your waiver wire. Hayden Hurst for the Los Angeles Chargers as tight end 46. And you can kind of use this information for Will Dissly as well. Someone for the Chargers at the tight end position is going to be catching passes and is going to be streamable, in my opinion. The Greg Roman offense just uses their tight ends like consistently. Mark Andrews, Vernon Davis back with the 49ers, even like Charles Clay when he was the offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills in like 2015. The tight end is a big part of the Greg Roman offense. And to me, especially in a situation where there's no clear cut, like who's the dominant wide receivers for the Chargers, we don't really have one. We just have like a bunch of guys, and we'll see who kind of steps up. But even if someone does step up, or multiple guys do step up, the tight end, the starting tight end for the Chargers, is going to catch some passes, and he's going to put up a decent low end, like tight end 12 to 15 points per game season, in my opinion. Now, if I had to put money on it, I think it would be Hayden Hurst. Now, unfortunately, we just don't know. That's where you get this ranking so low, because we're talking about he's not even in the top 40, right? No Chargers tight end is even in the top 40. Hayden Hurst is their highest ranked one. Maybe it's Hayden Hurst, maybe it's Darnold Parham, maybe it's Will Dissly. I don't know. I would put money on it being Hayden Hurst because it's kind of how he's played, and he has familiarity with Greg Roman Greg Roman was there when they drafted Hayden Hurst, or shortly after they drafted Hayden Hurst in the first round. So I'm just saying, like, we're potentially getting, like, even if it's the tight end 14, right, you're literally picking them up off of waiver wires. Jared Wiley for the Chiefs wasn't a good one to choose from the Chiefs, so this is kind of by default. Jared Wiley just makes the criteria of no tight ends in the top 30, top 30. He's a rookie. He went to TCU. They drafted him, I believe, in the fourth round. They drafted him in the fourth round, which is actually pretty decent draft capital for a tight end. He had good receiving stats at TCU his last year, 47 catches, 520 yards, and 8 touchdowns. So, those are really good stats, really good counting stats for a tight end in college, like really, really good. He's decent athlete as well. Like, he runs in the 80th percentile for tight ends at 40-yard dash at 4.62. He has good vertical jump numbers, which shows explosiveness. That's almost in the 90th percentile. So he has some traits where you could see it translating. Obviously, he's not going to overtake Kelsey for at least the next 2 years, but he could be the next tight end. Groom him to be the tight end in waiting. We'll see. It's always hard to hang on to tight ends when they do nothing for 2 years, right? But you never know. If you have the space, could be one of them. Now, one of my favorite stashes, and if you watch my channel, I've mentioned this guy many, many times already on multiple videos. Blake Watson, undrafted free agent for the Broncos. He is currently the RB 85. Blake Watson in college was kind of a hybrid player, running back, wide receiver hybrid. Yeah. He didn't really start to get used as like a running back until his third year in college. But you just look at his numbers, counting numbers again, he had over 1,600 yards combined, rushing and receiving, and 17 touchdowns last year with 53 catches. Like, the dude was a huge part of Memphis's offense. He can catch the ball really, really well. He can run the ball. And I'm always intrigued by Sean Payton offenses and their running backs. I know it didn't really materialize last year. Javonte Williams wasn't very good. Jaleel McLaughlin didn't get enough touches. Samaje Perine was a disappointment. But generally, the running backs in the Sean Payton system are going to put up fantasy points. And I don't think they like Javonte Williams very much. It's kind of what it seems like. They don't really like Javonte Williams. Samaje Perine, I think, could be cut. I know they drafted Audric Estime. I think they're kind of looking. Jaleel McLaughlin's obviously still there. Blake Watson, to me, like, I always think about Darren Sproles and what he did with, like, the Saints. And that dude, if you go back and look at his PPR finishes, he was top 10, top 12, like, consistently, because he was catching 70 passes, even though he only had like 80 rushes. And Blake Watson could kind of fit that mold. Crowded backfield, but you just never know. Maybe someone to hold on to. Moving into the AFC North, Darnell Washington is my pick for the Steelers. Again, not really a good pick there for the Steelers, but Darnell Washington, what was he, a third-round pick or second-round pick last year for the Steelers? The dude was essentially like, he's an athletic freak. Like, he's almost like a left or right, he's almost like a tackle that can catch. Yeah, he's like 6'7", 265. The dude's a monster. Didn't do anything last year. Obviously, Pat Freiermuth's there, so this is a little bit of a, what's the path for him? But because he's just so, like, he's an athletic freak, and you can be super versatile with him, I don't mind stashing him at least for one more season and just seeing, okay, does he develop into something in the Arthur Smith, Steelers offense? Is it likely? No, but it's just, again, like, you're betting on the athletic freak that he is, and that they try and use him even as a red zone guy. So potentially worth a stash, especially if you play in some kind of tight end premium. All right, we had a little bit of a connection issue there, but I think we're back. The next up on this list is Devontae Walker for the Baltimore Ravens. Had to cheat a little bit. He's wide receiver 83. Again, rookie this year, was picked, I believe, again, I'm going to double check, but I think he was picked in the 5th round. 4th round pick. So he was a 4th round pick by the Baltimore Ravens. Very productive, being the pass catcher for Drake May last year. If you just go and look at his numbers, like he was relatively productive, 700 yards and 7 touchdowns. I think percentage-wise, that was pretty good for North Carolina last year. Yeah, I mean, he led them in, almost led them in yards when he led them in touchdowns. So to me, he could potentially fill the role that they hoped Rashad Bateman was going to do. Now, I do think they're going to give Bateman one more chance, but like, really, are we expecting Bateman to do something? Like, the guy has done nothing, and he had all the opportunity in the world last year. Like, it was a rookie Zay Flowers, an old and decrepit Odell Beckham. And Nelson Aguilar had a better season than Rashad Bateman last year. He had all the opportunity in the world last year and just couldn't seize it. So I think they're going to give him another chance. But Devontae Walker, if he's just better than Bateman, could just take over that role. Right? He could just take over that role and be what it is. Now, what does that mean for fantasy? I don't know what that means. You know, the Ravens wide receiver 2 and maybe the third most targeted player on the team on a low volume passing team is not super exciting, but you never know what these guys can develop into. So he has a path to me to kind of find a role as the wide receiver 3 for this team. Andre Yoshivas for the Cincinnati Bengals. Keep Trade Cut has him as wide receiver 114, so he definitely fits this deep stash criteria. Yoshivas is kind of an athletic freak. Like, you just look at his measurables and combine stuff. Like, he was in the 76th percentile 10-yard split, 75th percentile 40-yard dash, 85th percentile of the vertical jump, 86th of the broad jump, 83rd of the bench press. So the dude, he's 6'3", 205 pounds. He was a project receiver. He went to Princeton, right? He went to Princeton, and he just like dominated at Princeton. Was a 6th-round pick last year. Flashed a couple times. Like, he had a couple good plays last year. Obviously, nothing too amazing. Only 116 yards, but 4 touchdowns. To me, if something happens to T. Higgins, whether it's a trade, although I don't think that's going to happen, or he gets injured, Yoshivas is the guy to step up. I know they drafted Jermaine Burton in, round 3. I think Burton's more of a Tyler Boyd replacement, kind of that vertical slot player, whereas Yoshivas, I think, would take over and play on the outside. Either him or Trenton Irwin, but I think it'll be Yoshivas this year, and he'll play on the outside if something happens to T. Higgins. So, there's some value there, even if it's, looking to 2025. For the Cleveland Browns is Dante Foreman. I always forget if it's Dante or Deontay, but Foreman is RB77 right now. He's on the Cleveland Browns, in case you didn't know. And, first of all, you just think about the Browns situation, and they always utilize 2 running backs, always. Even when they had prime Nick Chubb, Nick Chubb was on the field 50% of the time. Like, that's just how they run their offense, right? They want to use 2 running backs and keep them fresh and healthy. I'm just looking at like 2020 Nick Chubb, multiple games of under 60% of the snap share, right? 2021 Nick Chubb, again, multiple games under 50, 55%, 60%. So, he comes into a situation where, unfortunately, you have Nick Chubb coming off a major knee injury. And, we're not even sure if Nick Chubb's going to start the season, if, how effective he's going to be. Like, it was a major injury, one where you don't hope, can he play football again? Is he going to keep his leg type of thing? So, Jerome Ford's obviously there as well, but, you have a questionable Nick Chubb to potentially be questionable to start the year. It could be Jerome Ford and Dante Foreman. And to me, honestly, like, Jerome Ford, he was fine last year for his role. Dante Foreman's a better pure runner than Jerome Ford. And we've seen it 3 years in a row now. Dante Foreman comes in because a running back gets hurt or traded or whatever, and he just is a solid RB2, right? 2021, Derrick Henry gets hurt. Dante Foreman is like RB22 from that point on. 2022, Christian McCaffrey gets traded like week 7. And Dante Foreman is like, again, top 20 running back, 22, 24 running back from that point on. Last year, he had a 5-game stretch when, like Khalil Herbert was out and stuff like that. D'Onta Foreman was like a top 15 running back. Like, would anyone be surprised if he has a 5-week stretch of just being a RB2? And that's valuable, way more valuable than the RB77, in my opinion. Moving right along, we have the AFC East here. Frank Gore Jr. for the Buffalo Bills. Just missed that cut of running backs outside the top 75. But he's RB74 according to Keep Trade Cut. And my point here is like there's going to be a competition, in my opinion, for the backup role for the Bills. Obviously, James Cook is the guy. And then you have Ray Davis, who they drafted, I believe, in the 5th round. I'm just double checking that. Ray Davis, where he was drafted, I believe it was the 5th round. Round 4. Okay, so they picked him in round 4. Ray Davis. He's the odds-on favorite to be the backup. And then you have other guys like Ty Johnson, Darrington Evans, and then Frank Gore Jr. And he was undrafted, and he has motivation and wants to prove something. Super productive at college, but maybe, a little undersized or whatever. People don't think he can translate to the NFL. He's a little bit slower as well. But that being said, I give him a 15% chance of being the backup running back for the Bills. And no one's treating him that way, right? No one's really treating him that way. So I think he has a decent chance. He has a chance. And he's a guy I maybe want to stash, for before training camp starts and just kind of see, does he win that backup role or not? Kind of in the same light, Isaiah Davis. Isaiah Davis, to me, he's another player that has a 15% chance of being the backup running back for the Jets. Isaiah Davis is on the Jets. He's RB82. And what we have on the Jets right now, obviously you have Breece Hall. No one's taking Breece Hall's job. But what you have on the Jets right now is you have Braylon Allen, right, who's probably the favorite to be the backup. But Braylon Allen, who fell in the draft and went in round 4, right? You have Israel Abanikanda, who was a 5th-round pick last year. And then you have Isaiah Davis, who was a 5th-round pick this year. They literally took back-to-back running backs. And to me, they're going to say best man wins. And maybe Braylon Allen is the odd-on favorite. Israel Abanikanda has a chance, in my opinion. Isaiah Davis has a really good chance. Isaiah Davis could be very underrated, in my opinion. He's 6 foot 220. He runs well. He can he can catch the ball. He can run between the tackles. He can pass block. He can kind of do it all. And I think he has a sneaky chance to be the RB2 behind Breece Hall. I just think he's potentially better than Braylon Allen, and no one's treating it that way at all. You look at the difference between, Braylon Allen and where he's ranked. Braylon Allen is currently the RB48, and Isaiah Davis is the RB82. And to me, if I had to put percentages, right, I give 60% chance to Braylon Allen, a 25% chance to Isaiah Davis, 30% chance, and then, the leftover for Abanikanda. So he has a decent chance, and he could surprise some people. Another pre-training camp stash, in my opinion. Moving on to the Patriots, pretty easy here. For the Patriots, it is Jacoby Brissett. Is QB 40, according to Keep Trade Cut. He should be on every roster in Superflex leagues. I think he's going to start the season for the Patriots. And he's one of those quarterbacks where if they have a good enough team around him, defensively, a run game, some pass catchers, they could win. They could start off the year 4-2, he's just one of those quarterbacks. Is it likely? No. Are they going to want to see Drake May? Most likely. But, even a quarterback who starts 7 games in a season is going to have some value. Even if you use him to trade him to the Drake May manager and say, hey, look, you can tie up that quarterback room. Here's Drake May, right? Jacoby Brissett, I think people forget a little bit. In 2022, he was the Browns quarterback before Deshaun Watson came back from weeks 1 to 12, right? Weeks 1 to 12. Jacoby Brissett was the Browns quarterback, and he was actually pretty decent. He wasn't amazing or anything, but he was QB 17 overall. That's a QB3 in a Superflex league, right? A guy that you can plug in during a bye week and say, okay, give me 15 points. That's all I need. So, Is he going to win you leagues? No, but could he just be like your QB 3 or 4 in a Superflex league? Sure. Why not? Right? So Jacoby Brissett to me is a stash. And then for the Dolphins, I talked about him. I made a video about him, Taj Washington, wide receiver 128. Go watch my video about Taj Washington if you want to see it. I'm not super bullish on him, being this impact player for the Dolphins, but like the Dolphins, I think, are searching for a third option behind Waddle and Tyreek Hill, behind those two players, and they just don't have it. Yeah, now they have Odell Beckham, Braxton Berrios and River Craycraft are still there. Malik Washington, who was drafted in, I believe, the 6th round. But Taj Washington was a 7th round pick. And, if you get a piece of the Miami offense, even if it's their third option, I think it's going to have some value. Is it likely? No, but he might be a guy to hold on to, especially if you do return yard stuff. So 4 more players for you. We're moving to the AFC South. Tank Bigsby, RB64. I know people are very down on him, and I don't blame you. I think they want to make it work. I do think they want to make – I know there's already like rumors out there that he doesn't look good in the, the OTAs and stuff. But like they want to make it work. They literally didn't add anyone to this team. Like they have Dearness Johnson, who was a thing last year because Tank Bigsby just wasn't ready. They want someone to take the load off of Travis Etienne, and I think they want it to be Tank Bigsby, and they're going to give him every opportunity to be that RB2. So if he is an RB2, he needs to be rostered, especially on the Jaguars offense. So if he's out there, stash him for sure. Joe Flacco is another one I just don't understand. All the way down at QB 53. Do people realize who Joe Flacco is backing up? I don't think people realize this, but Joe Flacco is the backup quarterback for Anthony Richardson in the Indianapolis Colts. And we just saw Joe Flacco when he comes in. He was like QB 3 in points per game last year at the point when he came in for the Browns. And same thing's going to happen, guys. Shane Steichen's a really good offensive coach. And if Flacco has to play even just a few games, Joe Flacco is going to be a top 12, top 15 quarterback at worst. So we need to – and he's behind Anthony Richardson, a guy who got hurt in like three of the 4 games that he played last year, right? And we don't know if he can stay healthy, if he's going to run the ball. So Joe Flacco needs to be on roster. I saw people dropping him, and I snatched him up. Like people won championships because of Joe Flacco. 2 more here. It's 2 rookie running backs. We have Jawhar Jordan. I always have a hard time saying that. It's like Jawhar Jordan. He's on the Texans. And this is basically just like, you think about the Texans backfield. And obviously you have Joe Mixon there. You have Dameon Pierce. I think Daria Gumbawale is still there. And then Jawhar Jordan is, the rookie, right? Jawhar Jordan is the rookie. I'm double checking. I think he was an undrafted free agent. No, he was a 6th round pick for them. So they used the 6th round pick on him. Now, are they going to potentially use him as just like a kick returner? There's a very good chance because that's kind of what he did a little bit in college, a kick returner. So there's a chance that he's just a kick returner, but there's also a chance that he, they showed their hand. They don't like Dameon Pierce very much. So, they replaced him with Devin Singletary. There's a decent chance that they just say, you know what, Jawhar Jordan, you are our number 2 running back. He's a little bit undersized, so I don't think he's going to have like a workhorse role if he does take over. But if he's the RB2, again, on a really good offense, that plays, right? We don't need that, but we need it to roster these running backs for sure because they have such an easy path, right? Such an easy path. And then the last one here is Dylan Johnson. You guys will remember him from Washington, really, really productive at college, is the RB90. He was an undrafted free agent to the Tennessee Titans. Just double checking that he was undrafted. Dylan Johnson's interesting. I always was like wondering like why he wasn't getting a little bit more love coming out of the pre-draft process. Like, again, the dude was almost 1,400 total yards, 16 touchdowns. He's a decent size. Like, he's 6 foot 215. I think it's just very underwhelming with like his measurables and stuff like that. I'm just double checking what all those his draft combine stuff. Yeah, he just was he ran a 4.68. His vertical jump is low. His broad jump is low. But you know what? Like guys like Kyron Williams were kind of underwhelming in terms of the combine stuff. Like Kyron Williams, 4.65, bad vertical, bad broad jump. But we just saw what Kyron Williams. Some guys are just football players, right? Maybe that's Dylan Johnson. Like to me, he has a really good chance at being the RB3 for the Titans behind Pollard and Spears. So one of those guys get hurt, we're talking, okay, like Dylan Johnson's going to get maybe a chance. So potential stash there. So there you have it, guys. All the AFC teams, one stash from each team will be out. We will be back with the NFC team up next. Thank you guys for watching. Catch you all in the next video.